This podcast is a part of the PodMania Podcasting Network. Check out podmania.co.uk to check out more of our great podcasts, features, reviews, match ratings and previews spanning the crazy and diverse world of professional wrestling.
Hello, my name is Simon Miller from What Culture Wrestling, and you are listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast, and you better keep listening to it. Why? Here's why.
You're listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast, a sample of the best pro wrestling podcasts we can produce on our tiny budget. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, CastBox, and all other podcast platforms. If it's wrestling you want, check out more of our great content at podmania.co.uk. Let's do this.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the PodMania Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Gooden. I'm joined, as ever, by Chris O'Brien and Garth Jackson. Chris, how are you?
My cat's breath smells like cat food.
Garth, how are you?
Oh, God. You know what is I was going to try and do a fucking Jericho style fucking promo, but I've just totally thrown us off.
What? Hang on, what generation of Jericho?
Well, this one that we're doing now.
Oh, so you'd just be talking like this.
I was just going to talk and say, when I was invited onto this podcast, I thought about it for a little while. I thought, yeah, I should do it. Because this thing would be a lot better with me on it. And you know, these guys don't need luck when you've got me around, because I'm the best in the world at what I do. And then slam down the mic, but you totally threw us off.
I could do a CM Punk one. Just go. I believe this podcast would be better when Rob Goodwin's dead, but unfortunately, we're taken over by his idiotic Garth and his stupid Chris-in-law.
I can't believe that you've both cut pipe bombs already. We're only a minute and 16 seconds into the fucking podcast.
You clearly don't listen to it when it's just me and Garth, because we just call you out the whole time.
Oh, God, no. I've got much better things to do than listen to my own podcast.
I mean, it's not your own podcast when we're the only ones on it.
That's true. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see by the title of the podcast, we're doing something slightly different. So every Friday, we release a week in wrestling where we run down all of the wrestling news for the week. And then every other Tuesday, we release something slightly different, whether that's a retro pay-per-view review, whether that's a top 6 countdown, or whether it's like what we're doing today, where we take a feud, a storyline, or an angle, and we run it through from start to finish, looking at the matches, the angles, and all of the storylines that build it up. So today, what we're doing is one of the best feuds WWE have done in recent history. It was voted Feud of the Year in 2008. We are talking about WWE's feud of Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. So first, very, very quickly, Garth, were you watching WWE at this time?
Yes, I think I was back in. I was definitely watching this stuff. I definitely remember a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is probably what got me sort of back into it.
Yeah.
So good.
Chris, what about you? Were you watching at this point, or?
Yeah, I couldn't watch the weekly stuff because we didn't have Sky. I was 11 at this point. Just watching. But like, I'm watching it. I was watching it in a completely different context. Is my point. I couldn't watch the weekly show. I'd only have hearsay in school. Occasionally, when we were allowed computers in school, I'd sneak off to YouTube to watch some of the clips. And this was the biggest thing at the time. Like everyone who watched wrestling in school, there was like a subset of like 6 of us who'd talk about the wrestling every week. And this is the biggest thing. This is all we talked about all year. Like the only thing I think was bigger than this was like Batista and Cena, and that's because it was basically our version of Hogan and Warrior. So.
Yeah, it was a seismic shift because Batista was sort of set in at the top of the card, as was John Cena. They were there for now. This is all coming off the back of WrestleMania 24, where...
Great Mania. Underrated Mania.
Yeah, where Batista defeated Umaga in 7 minutes, so, match of the year contender there. Floyd Mayweather defeated The Big Show in a no DQ match again.
You can't say that's probably the best non-wrestler match in WWE history.
Better than Big Show Akibono?
You don't laugh at Akibono. He's a former IWGP Championship contender.
I will just point out that the Playboy Bunny Mania Lumberjill match was also on this card. So yes, an absolute winner this is. In all seriousness, though,
not the best.
In all seriousness, I've always seen Mania 24 as a one-match card, and I think anyone looking down this will probably agree. It probably delivered a little bit better than it should have done looking at the card, but when you see the career-threatening match between Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, and to be honest, that can be surmised in one gif, and that's the "I'm sorry, I love you" moment, that if you haven't cried at least once at that, you're not a real human being. But yeah, this is all coming off the back of that. Shawn Michaels has retired Ric Flair, and off the back of this, Batista confronts Shawn Michaels. And this is where this all starts. Weirdly, not with Chris Jericho at all. We're heading into Backlash 2008, and as I've already said, Batista's confronted Shawn Michaels, calling him selfish and egotistical. Now, for some strange reason, Jericho gets involved and is named the special guest referee for this match. And this is where it all starts. So, Backlash 2008. Now, Chris, I know you've watched this. What's your opinion of the match? Is there anything of note for the fans at home?
The first thing to really know, weirdly, is Jericho, despite the fact he's not wrestling, because he's in, people seem to, because we all sort of praise Jericho for reinventing himself, which, he does deserve. But also, we forget about there are, fairly lengthy periods where he's not doing that, and when he hasn't done that, he's the dullest fucker in the world. For example, between 2013, his comeback from 2013 to his 2016 comeback, it was all dog shit, and then he did the KO stuff. But we were in one of them where he'd sort of stagnated before he left in 2005, went away for a year and a half, came back in 2007, and after his initial nostalgia feud with Randy Orton, was sort of back. Just thinking up matches again, he was in Money in the Bank and did nothing. It's peak boring babyface Jericho here, and then you have honestly, with both Batista and Shawn Michaels, this felt like a feud because neither man had anything else going on.
Yeah, I think this was probably where that was heading. Go on. Sorry.
The match itself was kind of what you'd expect, to be honest. It's sort of your run of the mill. I'd almost call it a house show match. Michaels was just sort of bumping around Batista for a while before the end. The only real thing of note is the ending.
Yeah, sure. Garth, before we get to that ending that Chris is alluding to, did you watch this match in particular to set off this feud?
Yeah, I sort of skimmed through it because I remember it not being anything sort of special, just a pretty sort of regular Batista match. Like you say, it's the sort of lead up to the end, which, to be fair, at the time, I remember watching it and thinking, is he fucking genuinely hurt? Because it looked like he tweaked his knee, and obviously it's that easy to do. But I just thought it was really well worked, and how they've obviously worked it into that sort of moment where it's all in the right places, all in the right angle for HBK to jump up and give him the kick. But no, the match was pretty sort of run of the mill. Yeah,
if you haven't already seen the match between Batista and Shawn Michaels at Backlash, it's an okay match. It's nothing spectacular, nothing you should go out of your way to go and watch. As Chris and Garth have already alluded to, the main point is here that Shawn Michaels looks like he's tweaked his knee, is sort of alluding to the referee that he's hurt, he can't continue, and then jumps up, delivers a sweet chin music to Batista, and wins the match. Jericho takes real issue with this. He thinks that faking a knee injury is, this is the Heartbreak Kid, someone that Jericho repeatedly says he looked up to when he was when he was learning to wrestle, when he was, even when he was in WCW and things like that. He looked up to Shawn Michaels as this fantastic competitor, and that it was below him to then fake it, to the point where Jericho actually gave him a Slammy Award for Best Acting Job, which I thought was absolutely amazing. And then we move on. Both Shawn and Jericho were then paired together to face Miz and Morrison. Flashback to now, where Michaels proved to Jericho that he was really hurt. This was supposed to be Michaels going, look, this is how bad my knee is. I can't go properly. Then admits to Jericho that he has actually faked his knee the entire time, so it was a little bit pointless.
And then switch chin music.
And then just switch chin music. Look, I was faking the entire time.
Like when you were a kid and you and you spill your juice or something, and you very, very clearly have it's you that you've spilled the juice, but you're still gonna blame whatever you can.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You grasp at everything around you.
I just love it how Y2J is just sort of all the way through. So it's like, nah, you're not getting out of it that easy. But then he flips it and he says, no, you're too injured. We can't do this. We have to call off the match.
And honestly, he still believed it right to the point going into this match. Just a slight spoiler where he kept going after the knee and it didn't work because Michaels wasn't hurt.
It makes me laugh, and this is really important to note. And Garth sent me a text, it must have been about 3 weeks ago, because we were originally supposed to record this a couple of weeks ago. And Garth sent me a message, and it was just, and Michaels is supposed to be the face. Just bear that in mind.
To be completely fair, Garth says that every time we watch a Shawn Michaels match.
That is true. There is slight bias on Garth's side.
But this is like Weasel, HBK.
You have to be on at this point. They're both baby faces. HBK was just adding a heel element. Because again, I think they were paired together just because neither of them had anything else.
I do like how and I'd be surprised if this isn't Jericho writing a lot of this shit. Obviously along with the writers, but a lot of this, it's when he's spoke about it, this is the sort of stuff that he says that they would come up with him and Michaels, because I think at the time they were basically just told just go out and do whatever. Because
to be fair, they were up until a certain match we'll get to, I think.
And I love it how I really do like the bit where HBK is sort of no, and obviously he kicks Jericho and he says, "Trust me, I'm not hurt." And then flips over the top rope. I genuinely laughed at that.
A dick.
I forgot about that bit.
Yeah. So a match is set between the two people. Again, bearing in mind that these are both baby faces at this point. A match is set for Judgment Day 2008, and honestly, I thought this was fantastic. It was easily match of the night. But I thought this match was absolutely fantastic.
I mean, that's not exactly... Have you seen the rest of this card?
The rest of the card is not good, and when you look at 2008's cards and the cards we're going to go through, there are some terrible matches.
You have such classics as John Cena versus JBL. That clearly needed 15 minutes. John Morrison, The Miz versus CM Punk and Kane.
Yeah, and it isn't exactly peak Kane, is it, in 2008?
Baldy bastard Kane. Taker versus Edge, which was in this period where Edge kept getting out of Undertaker matches through shitty reasons. And then your main events, Undertaker versus Randy Orton, which of course, not Triple H versus Randy Orton, which is of course always a great match. They're so cerebral.
Indeed. Yeah. As I've already said, this was easy. I think this would have been match of the night on a much better pay-per-view as well. Let's not do disjustice to the match just because the pay-per-view was a bit shit. So, Garth, let's start with you. Opinion of this match and how it sort of played out.
I enjoyed it. I liked how it was a non-title match as well, because there was no reason for it to be a title match. They weren't really sort of fighting over a title, which all that sort of stuff leads into the fact that it's a grudge match rather than a title match, which gives it a bit of a different feel.
To be fair, Jericho was in one of those reigns where he constantly wasn't defending the title for some reason.
Yeah. It was just keep it on Jericho because there's nobody else.
Yeah.
But I thought it was good. Like I said before, like HBK was the total heel in this match. Like, everything he was doing was kind of sort of snidey or heelish. And obviously this is to move more towards Jericho's turn on the crowd, like a later point, spoilers. My favourite part of the whole thing was the bit where he hits the Sweet Chin music on the apron. And like Jericho's like out cold. But then he gets him in the ring and then he's lining up for Sweet Chin music and Jericho keeps falling down, like selling the injury. And you could see Michaels getting genuinely pissed off as he says, fucking stand up. Stop falling over. And Jericho was like not even turning to face him, he's just like falling like he's dazed. And you can see he's like, fucking get up. I was loving that. It was good. And the actual finish was really well worked as well.
It was.
Like the reversal. Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
This match was fine. I say this a lot, but with certain feuds, but this feels like the touring Jericho's Michaels match, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is great, but I don't think these two have like the ability to not have a great match at this time.
Yeah.
So, like with the exception of a couple story beats thrown in, I think this is the time match they'd have on a house show. It's still like fucking great. Don't get me wrong, but like this is the match they tour.
Mm-hmm.
This is.
It's like the set. It's like the setup, isn't it?
Yeah. But like I like the story beat at the beginning where like Jericho constantly went after Michael's leg because he was still convinced it was hurt, and then like it just didn't work because Michael's leg wasn't hurt. But yeah,
Jericho got a fat lip as well.
Yeah.
Not the only person to get a fat lip in this feud.
Yeah, no, it's a common occurrence. But teeth were lost in this feud. But yeah, it was a fun kinetic match. Both men know how to sell perfectly. And again, at the end where Jericho kept falling down, Michael's continuing getting visually frustrated. I haven't seen him that frustrated since SummerSlam 2005. But yeah, no, this is just fun. But like, there's no heat really to it at this stage. It was just like a fun little undercard match.
Yeah, it's the start to the feud, isn't it? And it is really the only match with no real build-up to it. The only crux of this match, of course, is that Jericho thinks that Shawn has been faking an injury. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is the WWE. We've had feuds started over less shampoo commercials and coffee, for God's sake. But, you know, it was a good Jericho and Michaels match. And the fact that there wasn't a definitive winner, you know, ultimately Shawn didn't win with Sweet Chin Music. He won with a roll-up after countering the walls of Jericho. It led into the next match. And there was lots of beats, as you mentioned, Chris, that will play into other matches and will be sort of mirrored in other matches. And I love when shit like that happens. Any good feud has it, but this does it perfectly. Anything else we want to say on Judgment Day, or shall we move on to some genuinely interesting shit?
Let's move on to Raw.
So, on Raw then, Michaels is invited onto the highlight reel with Chris Jericho because you can never have enough talk show segments. And Jericho sort of talks to Michaels, says that, you know, the whole lying thing really got to him. And what got to him even more than the lying to, you know, someone that HBK was supposed to be, you know, on par with, supposed to be friends with, very close friends, in fact, was the fact that even though everyone knew he was lying, then super kicked Jericho in the face, they still cheered. They still chanted HBK, HBK. Brilliant. And that really, really got to Jericho. Now, again, this is Jericho making a good point. And this is what made, I know it's going to sound like a really strange parallel, this is what made The Miz such a compelling heel in 2016, because he was the heel that made good points that you couldn't argue with. He might be a dick, but he's making the points that everyone's like, actually, yeah, that's sort of correct, actually.
I think this is a line that people struggle with. You have to understand the heel's motivations, but you also can't make the heel too agreeable. Like, for example, like going into this feud, what Jericho's about to do just doesn't justify what he did.
No, it's a completely outlandish reaction to what Shawn's been doing, but again, it helps that Michaels isn't completely innocent in this feud, and especially in this opening lead-up.
I just love the whole, this is him starting to build his heat. It's just slow, because he hasn't come out and said it yet, but he's basically saying the crowd are hypocrites, because they're cheering the guy who's cheating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he slowly starts turning that, and it's just that's what I thought was so good with this. It's such a slow build up until obviously the big sort of
you can see him getting as he goes through his promo, you can see him getting more, because it's almost like he's just figuring it out in his head as he goes along.
Yeah.
And he starts doing his pout.
Yes, he does. The famous Jericho pout.
I just love the bit where he's like, what is it? Lying, cheating, pathetic little worm of a human.
But he says it in the same face way he's introduced Shawn Michaels at the start of the segment. HBK, lying, worm-like, pathetic. And it's brilliant. It's amazing. And I completely agree with what you said. The fact that you can almost see the heel turn taking place in Jericho's head. What makes this so good and what makes this feud so great is that the heel turn wasn't forced. It was completely organic. You know, the whole thing with Jericho's turn, you could understand why Jericho turned. And Chris, I completely agree with you. The crescendo of this thing where he smashes Shawn into the Jeritron 5000 is completely at odds with, that's ridiculous. That's like saying, right, you've taken some money out of my wallet, I'm going to cut your fucking hand off. I mean, it's completely at odds with each other. I haven't done that, by the way.
Oh, you beat me at Mario Kart, kicking the balls.
Exactly. But you can see why Jericho is so angry, why Jericho turns on Shawn. He's been lied to, he's been embarrassed, and this ultimately has led to this, just rage, absolutely beating the piss out of him, and then launching him into the Jeritron 5000, which I will just say was sold brilliantly. It was sold fantastically.
And then continued as a thread as well.
Yeah, it did.
Michaels can be accused, rightly so, in many matches of overselling, but when he's on, I don't think there's a better seller.
Yeah.
Dolph Ziggler.
Dolph Ziggler is all the worst parts of Shawn Michaels put into.
He's like, it's like on Twins, where Arnie is the best of everything and Danny DeVito's the worst of everything.
Yes,
Dolph Ziggler is the Danny DeVito.
He's basically like he's Shawn Michaels light, diet Shawn Michaels, isn't he?
Yeah.
If Shawn Michaels is good old fashioned Coca-Cola, Dolph Ziggler is a
roller cola.
No, he's a lukewarm kind of Dr. Bob.
Now that we've completely eviscerated Dolph Ziggler, who seems to have done all right for himself in that regard, but never mind. Obviously, as you would expect from being smashed into a big TV screen, Shawn suffered the most debilitating injury in the history of wrestling, which was a kayfabe detached retina. No scratches at all, which I thought was hilarious. No blood whatsoever, but he did detach his retina.
At least give the fucker an eye patch.
Exactly. So this led to the second match between the two at the Great American Bash. Remember when these were a thing in the WWE?
Can we quickly mention what else is on this card?
The Great American Bash card? I wouldn't bother.
I loved this show as a kid.
Really?
As a kid.
It's one of very few shows I was allowed to keep on DVD.
Go on then.
I watched. So it's Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, the Edgehead, beating Finlay and Hornswoggle, Jesse and Festus, and Morrison and Miz for the titles.
Wow.
Jesus, that went 10 minutes. Good God.
Shelton Benjamin defeating Matt Hardy for the US title. It was actually a decent match.
I can imagine. That sounds like a good match, to be fair.
Mark Henry versus Tommy Dreamer, because Tommy Dreamer just won't die.
Was that an ECW classic?
Michelle McCool versus Natalia. But it was whatever. CM Punk versus Batista, which I remember being annoyed by because of a double DQ. I was like, oh, that's bollocks. JBL versus Cena, because JBL won because, of course, we needed a third match in this feud. And then Triple H versus Edge, which I remember really loving as a kid. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I'm sure it's shite. But
you are slightly blindsided by your love for Edge, though.
Edge is Bay.
He is. But the match that we're talking about took place right smack dab in the middle of the card. Chris Jericho with his protege Lance Cade.
Ooh, this is where my fun fact comes in.
Go on.
Do you know who Lance Cade was originally going to be?
In what way? I mean...
who was originally going to be in Lance Cade's place?
Right. So who was going to be Jericho's protege originally?
Yeah.
Trevor Murdoch.
No.
Was it Big Time Bull Dempsey?
No. It's been so long since we've said that.
Chuck Palumbo.
No. It's not someone who was in the crowd at the time.
Mankind.
It was
Triple H.
It was indie darling Bryan Danielson.
Really?
Yeah, because
was he in NXT at that time?
No.
Oh,
no.
He was still in ROH feuding with Nigel. It's just a case of he was a trainee of Shawn Michaels who was actually good. So they were like, you'd be good to go alongside Jericho, and apparently he turned it down. Apparently Shawn Michaels wanted Bryan in there. No, yeah, exactly. But also, like, Bryan doesn't consider, despite going to Michael's training school, he doesn't consider Shawn his mentor because this was during Shawn's peak drug years. So William Regal taught him more than Shawn. Yeah,
it has been said. It's quite open, isn't it, that Daniel Bryan views William Regal as more of a mentor than Michaels.
Yeah, because Michaels apparently only turned up to opening day and then just left the people who he basically Donald Trumped it in the sense of his name was on the school, but he didn't do anything.
So before we get onto the actual crux of the match, I will just say, and once I'd seen it on this pay-per-view, I had to watch this match twice, because the first time I watched it, there was a woman, and I couldn't take my eyes. She was wearing a red top, and if you watch this show, Great American Bash 2008, please keep an eye out for this woman, because she's wearing a red top, she's in the aisle, and she's dancing the entire match. There's no fucking music, but she is dancing the entire time, trying to get herself over, and it pisses me off so much. Pardon?
Oh, this is in New York, so she's probably on drugs.
I was going to say, probably popped a couple of pills.
Honestly, it was the wildest dancing, and it was just like, fucking sit down.
You know, it's funny. I watched a really low quality rip of it because I pirated, and I was like this flicker on my screen, and I just assumed it was my screen. I thought like a couple dead pixels, but like no, it was a woman about.
But it really did wind me up, and I couldn't take my eyes off it the first time I watched this match. And I was like, fuck, I've missed most of the match here. So I had to go back and watch it. We started with Garth last time, so Chris, opinion of this match, how it compared to the Judgment Day match, and how it moves the feud forward.
This felt like an old territory match. Like, in the vein of like a Lawler Dundee, like there wasn't really anything flashy, but we were just beating 7 shades of piss out of each other. Which
that's a running theme.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be honest, if you know me, you'll know that's basically my kink. So of course I love this. Yeah, just I loved how Jericho kept going for both. He occasionally went for the leg, and I still don't know why, because his leg was fine, and then also just kept punching the eye. Like every time Shawn would get momentum going, if chances of it was being stopped, it was something to the eye. And then Lance Cade was also there.
But what made me laugh was, Jericho didn't seem to twig, shit, yes, the eye injury, until about 2/3 of the way through the match.
Honestly, I think he just paced that so he could get, because like by then, like his residual "fuck you, Jericho" heel heat had died down. So he was like, okay, now it's time to go for the eye.
Yeah, true.
But also the fact that there was nothing around the eye, maybe he just forgot.
True. They'd done nothing with that, had they? No black eye, no cuts, nothing.
How much does an eye patch cost?
Garth, what about you, man? What did you think of this match?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like a real, like a slow burn match where, yes, they went for it, but there wasn't no real spots until the end. But what I also loved is that I like watching these matches again because it gave you the sort of build-up videos beforehand.
Yeah.
Some of the promos they were cutting were amazing, like the one where Jericho was going on about the good thing about all great martyrs is they're forgotten and swept under the carpet, and that was like, it's such a good sort of thing. But then there's a bit where HBK comes out and says, no matter all your championships and everything you ever do, you'll never be HBK. And it's like, oh, fucking hell. And then like you can see Jericho getting so fucking mad. I just loved it. And I noticed it straight away. Jericho had completely changed his entrance for this match. He just walked straight down to the ring, got into the ring, and just stood there and like stared at the entrance, waiting. And same with HBK as well. That's a dynamic, and the subtle changes that they made, which made the matches more sort of higher stakes. And again, not bothered about the belt. It was just more, it was a grudge match. Just HBK selling his ribs quite a lot. Even when he was throwing his own punches, he was selling the ribs, which is sort of, it was never a highlight or anything, but it just fed into the match. Just really love it. I mark Alfred every time he does it. He does it in almost every match, and that's Jericho's like triangle dropkick thing. I just love that move, and nobody else really does it. But it's such an effective.
And he always managed to hit it convincingly here. Like normally against nearly anyone else, that move seems so contrived.
It seems so, yeah, because like they're standing there waiting for it.
Yeah,
but he seemed to time it.
It was like as soon as Michaels was on the apron, he was running to hit it.
And just the fighting, where they're fighting on the top rope and stuff. And what looked good is, and which is another one of the bugbears of like modern, they're making it look like they're not helping each other at the top of the ring, like on the top of the rope, where normally they're like, you can see them holding on to each other, but they're not here. It's just instinct. They're working on instinct. In
their defense, what like a modern match where they didn't help each other on the top rope was Joe Coffey versus Pete Dunne, and they fell off twice.
Yeah,
that was awful.
But that honestly, I'd completely forgot about the blood in this match and how much of it there is.
There's so much blood.
They got in trouble. They got in so much trouble. Because they went PG literally like a few weeks beforehand.
Like Jericho's mentioned this before, and he said like it was like $150,000 fine.
Yeah, no.
And I think Jericho paid it as well, because it was basically his fault.
Because Jericho for the longest time just wouldn't argue with Vince, and now his gimmick is fuck Vince. But
I just loved it. And I thought again the fact that it was a stoppage, there wasn't a definitive winner.
Mm-hmm.
And the last match was like just like a sort of lucky break for Michaels. This match ended in a sort of stoppage.
I kind of loved how it wasn't anything big that did it. It was just he kept punching the eye, and Michaels just didn't know where he was.
Just a really good like brawl match.
Yeah, I think once the blood sort of happened, obviously it wasn't supposed to happen, or Vince didn't want it to happen, should I say. It added another dimension to the match, because without the blood and without, I feel like you wouldn't be as invested in the match. I'm not one of those bloodthirsty dickheads that wants blood in every single match. I don't want it to be Big Japan. I just want, when it's necessary to further a feud like this one, perfect. Because if you'd have had Judgment Day, then followed by this pay-per-view where, there'd just been two, indecisive finishes, it's not bringing anything else to the feud, whereas literally Jericho beating the absolute piss out of Michaels, who's bleeding profusely from this eye that Jericho's already injured, it adds that little element to this match to make it more important, to make Jericho look like a badass heel, to effectively make him look like a shark that sniffed blood, which is effectively what he did. And
you see it in his face during the match.
Yeah.
He sort of looks and he's just like double taking. He's like, right, I've got to go for the eye.
Yeah. And then you've got Michaels. It builds, like he needs it. It builds sympathy for Shawn. brings that clearer definition between the heel and the face. And I think that's perfect. I mean, I don't really see why Lance Cade was part of this match. His interference was limited and quite pointless. And to be perfectly honest with what we've just said, any interference on the behalf of Lance Cade is, it didn't add anything because we had the blood, we had the stoppage, we had Jericho, the definitive dickhead heel, and that's all we needed from this match. I mean, I don't actually like this match as much as their Judgment Day match. But
I prefer this, but mostly because their Judgment Day match had no heat to it. I'd rather take heat than no heat.
Well, what I was going to say was I prefer Judgment Day to Great American Bash. On a wrestling level, that is a better match. However, heat-wise, and as far as a match that moves the feud forward, this was better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you look at the start of their Judgment Day match, there was chain wrestling, there was perfect bridges out of pins and all that, stuff that we know Jericho and Shawn can do. However, it showcased a completely different side of Jericho, and it built towards SummerSlam 2008, which is fantastic, which we'll get into now. So, after a month of not appearing on Raw due to the injured eye, Shawn made a proclamation that he was going to announce his retirement at SummerSlam 2008. And, he came down with his wife, ex-Nitro girl Whisper, or Rebecca, as she's more well known. They come down to the ring. His wife is literally sobbing. She does a fucking fantastic job throughout this segment. She is great. The unsung hero of this segment. And Shawn stands there and...
I mean, she was sort of the highlight coming out of it.
Well, yeah, she was. Certainly afterwards, anyway. And Shawn tells everyone that he is going to retire. He's, his body can't take it anymore. He wants to be there for his kids. And I don't know whether it's just because I knew what was going to happen, or whether, I know that obviously Shawn... I don't know whether it's because I'm watching in hindsight. I didn't think it came across as that sincere from Shawn. You look at the Mark Henry fake retirement angle, when everyone was like...
I think the Mark Henry angle had ruined all of the fake retirement angles.
That was fucking brilliant. That was so well done. Everyone was convinced that he wasn't going to do it. He was going to retire. He wasn't going to continue. Here, you just felt... Michaels doesn't see... The only thing that sold it for me was the fact that his wife was fantastic. Sure enough...
He is a big fan of Ric Flair. He's retired about 15 times.
To be completely fair, Rob, has Shawn Michaels ever cut a sincere promo in his life?
Sincere?
That's a smile.
No. He did. That is true, actually.
That wasn't sincere.
I mean, can you honestly say anything is more sincere? He did. He did, actually.
I'll be the guy who'll be remembered for screwing Bret Hart, retiring Ric Flair, losing his smile.
He's a good promo, definitely. He's very, very good on the mic. It's just, I didn't find it that convincing. However, Chris Jericho's music interrupts. He comes down in his suit. The heel Jericho we all talk about.
This is amazing.
And this
promo's amazing.
It's just fantastic. He looks Shawn straight in the eye and says, "No."
Oh, that's fucking, honestly, I got goosebumps watching that.
Oh, it's just brilliant.
He cited some interesting people, didn't he, as his influence for that? I know one of them was Harley Race.
Yeah.
But the other one was the dude from No Country for Old Men.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, yeah. God, I was going to tell you it was then. Oh, fuck.
Hold on, I'll look up the No Country for Old Men list.
Yeah, please do.
Uruguayan dude.
Oh, what the fuck is his name? That's really going to annoy me now till Chris tells me.
Him from James Bond.
Yeah.
Old Men cast, it was...
what's his name?
There we go. Lilwin... I don't know how to fucking say that. He was played by Josh Brolin.
Oh, that's not the person I was thinking of.
Not him. It's a Uruguayan dude.
Right. Okay. We'll circle back.
Anton. By Jeva, I can't say any of these names, but yeah, I know who we're on about.
The guy from James Bond.
Yeah,
Yes.
Right.
I've only seen one James Bond movie.
Of course you fucking have.
It was Skyfall.
Javier Bardem.
Thank you. Thank you. Javier Bond. That's who it is. Thank you.
We spent way too much time on this.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, Garth, you have a massive stonk on for the way that Jericho delivers this promo and what he says. Yeah. Talk us through it.
Just, it's like you said there, when he just comes and goes, no, and then leaves a pause. He's like, no, because just HBK, what do you mean? No, you're not going out like this. Because when he starts that promo, it sounds like, no, you can't go out like this because you're HBK. It's like, no, you're not going out like this because you're going out because of Chris Jericho. He's like, oh, no, I want to hear it. I deserve it. I just that place, I deserve it. And it's just so fucking good. Like, I got proper goosebumps watching it again. It's so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then
just sort of, you can't walk out here without admitting to the world and giving me what I deserve and all this. And all the while, his wife's like, just come on, just leave it. And then obviously what happens. And just brilliant. Just all three of them's performances were fucking amazing, especially the wife.
Yeah, considering what she ended up doing in the end, absolutely outstanding. Chris, is there anything you want to add?
Before we get to the part.
Before the main part.
Before the main part.
I agree. You could definitely, it's again like his heel turn. You could see the wheels turning in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could see him increasingly hating Shawn Michaels the more he fought. It's like whenever we bring up a Screwjob on Garth. It's incredible.
It's the thing with that is you can see like Jericho's sort of how fucking dare you attitude coming out. It's so good.
Yeah. After embarrassing Jericho with this whole lying thing, Shawn's now going out. In Jericho's mind, Shawn is going out without any reference to Jericho. Despite it being Jericho's fault, effectively. Jericho has seen this and thought, Shawn is not acknowledging me again. Like, he hasn't acknowledged me throughout, this entire feud. I'm not having this. And you can see Jericho's sort of warped interpretation of this entire thing. And again, it adds something fantastic. And he's so captivating in his delivery, and you hang on every single word he says. Anyway, Michaels sort of gets back at Jericho, and Jericho swings a forearm at Michaels. Michaels, who is the babyface, basically throws his wife in the way of this elbow.
I am going to defend Shawn here.
Of course you are.
If you throw a punch at someone, your instinct is to duck.
Your instinct is to duck, Chris, not to throw your significant other into its path.
He didn't throw his. To be fair, everyone in my school was convinced that Jericho pushed Shawn out of the way.
Well,
that would be
everyone
such
in my
a different
school
dynamic.
Like, honestly, up until I rewatched this in my head, it has always been Jericho pushes Shawn out of the way to punch his wife. That's what it's always been.
It's so well done, because this could have been such a horrible, fake part of the segment.
No, because that's the thing. The wife didn't oversell it. She genuinely looked like she'd been punched. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if she actually was.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure she was knocked out for a little bit.
She was knocked out for a little bit.
Genuinely knocked out.
Have you ever seen like those? This is going to really give away what I do in my free time. Have you ever seen those videos of like,
those special videos in the special file on Chris's desktop?
Like those like fake kung fu masters who say they can knock people out of air or whatever, and then when we go up against an actual martial artist, and you can clearly see the shock of them being punched in the face for the first time.
Yeah,
that's what Shawn Michaels' life looks like here.
Yeah, it's like the best. I mean, it's not the best part. It's horrible to say. it's the way like
I hit him. My favorite part was like when a woman got punched in the face.
No, but it's like the fact that she obviously gets hit properly. You see a head jerk, but then her body just absolutely slumps, and it's like you can't fake that shit. That's a genuine knockout punch.
Usually, this is the point. Usually, go on.
I was sitting watching it, and like the missus was sitting next to us.
Oh God!
Fucking about, and I watched it, and I rewound it. And I said, "Watch this." She watched it. And she went, "Did she really get hit there?" I went, She's out cold, properly clocked. And she couldn't take her eyes off it. She watched the rest of it.
Your missus is notorious for not enjoying your wrestling habit. And for one thing, you think, you know what she has to see? This woman be punched in the face.
Or maybe it was a signal.
Wow. Wow.
I'm just joking. There was no Chris Benoit here.
Surely this has to be edited out.
No, that's... I'm physically crying.
Guys, full disclosure, I'm like a little bit drunk, so...
Oh my lord.
I've been drinking port.
Oh my god! Why?
No, don't get wine hungover, Garth. You saw what you were like in fucking Blackpool when you got wine hungover.
Jesus.
So yeah,
I made breakfast to recover.
Oh, this was amazing.
So
we're never going to financially recover from this.
Oh god. Oh, right.
Let's fast forward 15 seconds, everyone.
Oh god. Right. So anyway.
I rant now. I have a rant.
Oh.
I don't like what this next match. Actually, this happens after the next match.
Hang on. Before we get to the next match, yes, you can have a rant in a moment. I promise you can have your rant. Oh, so anyway, Jericho lamps Michaels' missus, which apparently Garth needed to replay for his own wife. And she's obviously out cold. Shawn sells it fantastically, doesn't go over the top. Jericho looks like he's seen a ghost, backs off upstage.
He's absolutely shitting himself, isn't he?
Yeah. And the reason he's shitting himself is because he actually has smashed Rebecca in the face. So they are both brought backstage, and Shawn is pissed. And there's loads of reports that Shawn was physically raging at Jericho, and Jericho is so apologetic. Apparently, according to one source, he literally put his arms behind his back and says, "You need to hit me to get me back, because I genuinely did not mean to do that. Please
it's like
hit me."
in Friends when Joey fancies Rachel and
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And Jericho's like, "My God, you've got to hear me. I'm so sorry." And apparently,
isn't his wife the one who calmed it all down?
His wife was the one who stood up after applying ice to her swollen face, stands up and shouts at Jericho, "Come on, is that all you've got?" Which is just... And apparently the entire situation was defused there.
Didn't she say as well to someone, did it look good?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck it now.
I love how fucking the non-wrestlers, the most old school out of all of them, she's potentially there going, well, it got heat, so...
Yeah.
I think she probably saw Shawn and thought, if I don't say something, he's actually going to kill him.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Chris, you wanted a rant...
I just realised my rant doesn't fit in the story until after this match. But can we quickly discuss the rest of this Unforgiven card?
So, yeah, we get the match...
Before we get there, did anyone watch the Raw after SummerSlam?
I didn't watch the Raw after SummerSlam, no.
I did see parts of it in the highlights.
It's just such a good segment, because again, he comes out and he's just like, "I don't apologise for any of it. If anyone's responsible for what happens, it's Shawn. He wanted to placate his ego."
And then he was like, "And it's all of your fault."
Yeah.
For helping him placate his ego.
I just love this way. It's like, "I want you to remember the last moment." Because this is before, obviously, the match. He's like, "I want you to remember the last moment of your careers, cradling your wife's head after I just knocked her out." It's like, fuck it out.
He was so amazing as a heel.
It's just how he says, "Shawn, you deserve it," and "Shawn, you're welcome." And just walks out and say, "Oh my God, that's so good."
Absolutely incredible. So this all obviously leads to an unsanctioned match between Jericho and Michaels, which they have at Unforgiven. Chris, you want to run down the rest of the Unforgiven card, I'm sure, just to make sure people understand just how shit 2008 WWE was for the whole.
I mean, it's better than 1995. But,
I mean, it's not. It's Championship Scramble, the musical.
Oh, Unforgiven. Yeah, Do you like this? Is because this Championship Scramble is actually. Oh wow! Just dropped my ball opener.
I just assumed it was Garth getting angry.
But no, like essentially the championship scramble was introduced by Raw General Manager at the time, Mike Adamle.
Oh fucking hell! The most boring. I didn't think I would ever prefer John Laurinaitis to anyone, but fuck me, that bloke is boring.
Mm-hmm.
But then, for some reason, it was just adopted by the other two brands. It's like,
awful.
And yeah. Anyway, so like, the ECW Scramble was actually fun because we had a good feel-good moment when Matt Hardy beat Mark Henry, Chavo Guerrero, Fit Finlay, and The Miz. DiBiase.
The idea that The Miz was ever on ECW is just, it's pissing on that memory, isn't it? My God.
Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase beat Crime Time, who were extremely over at the time.
I actually genuinely like Crime Time.
I love Crime Time. It's just when Vince turns up and goes for shizzle. And just like, what? But
Anyone watch the contract signing
no.
before? Just the promo.
It was in the package, but I can't remember it.
Just so good. Just the fact that they both stared at each other for so long and not cracked a smile. Just
That is sad.
And it's just where it's like everyone's dismissed, and it's like Jericho just. I think it's like the first thing he says. Remember SummerSlam when I invertedly punched your wife in the mouth? It's just fucking hell. Jericho just piling on the fucking logs onto onto the fire that's underneath him.
No chill from that man.
And it's just like, I don't know. These two just had something. Yeah, amazing. Just love that. Contact signings are normally sort of quite hokey and shite, but this is generally like these guys really hate each other, but because they signed this contract, they couldn't fight until the actual match, which added the next sort of dynamic. Because as soon as the bell goes, they're all out.
So I have something weird here because I mentioned this in a group chat earlier. So my friend's girlfriend is a law student. So I wanted to know, like, would this no harbor agreement or whatever it was, would that hold up? So I asked him to ask her, and then she messaged me, and I have the message here. And it says, "This wouldn't hold up in any court. These sort of agreements do not come under gross negligence. If you're gonna let two people fight with no restrictions, that would fall under."
Jesus.
Right, I'm not being funny. Right, this is a industry where we have someone who apparently is an alien competing for the AEW Women's Championship. I think we can suspend the disbelief ever so slightly that the hold harmless agreement is utter bullshit.
Yeah, I know. I was just really curious because I'm like, there's no way this. I've always thought this when I'm watching wrestling. It's like, there's no way these agreements hold up. And it was just in my mind, like, okay, I'm going to find out about. Because I was half expecting them to come back with yeah, but it probably would work. But no.
Garth, going back to your point about the contract signing, actually, Jericho Michaels suffers a tricep tear during this. So that's how hard he was going. But
because of Lance Cade.
Well, it's the only decent bit of interference he did throughout this entire feud, apparently. Apart from being mounted by Jericho in this match.
Honestly, I assumed it was a wanking injury.
So in amongst all of the championship scrambles, which the WWE did all of this pay-per-view as championship scrambles, then did one more and have never done it since.
An hour's worth of wrestling.
And then haven't done it since bar one. So clearly that went up in smoke. We did have this unsanctioned match with Shawn Michaels defeating Jericho by a referee's decision in 26 minutes and 54 seconds. Garth, opinion on this match?
It was decent. I love it how Michaels straight away just takes his boot off and starts smashing Jericho with it.
Take
literally,
that!
It's just literally like, I'm just going to use anything I can get my hands on just to beat the shit out of you. And then it's like the fact that after that, Jericho basically just takes an absolute fucking ass whooping for most of the match. And then obviously Lance fucking Cade has to get interfered.
Lance Cade is your Vince Russo, apparently. Lance fucking Cade.
It's awful. And then obviously they set up the chair and they set up the table, and Jericho ends up going through it with the chair shot. Was it chair shot to the head and then through the table? And then Michael sets him up for the elbow on the desk, which is always a nice spot.
He set Jericho and Lance Cade up in a very strange way on that announce table, didn't he?
Yeah, it was very sexual, wasn't it?
It was a very sexual setup.
It was overtly sexual.
Basically,
distractingly sexual.
He put Lance Cade back first on the table, as you would normally set someone up on a table. And then he had Jericho effectively mounting Lance Cade. And Jericho had to stay in that position for an inordinate amount of time.
Have you two ever watched The In-Betweeners?
Obviously.
Of course.
Okay, when not Jay, who's the really nerdy one again?
They're all really nerdy. That's the point, but I assume you mean Will.
Will, yeah, when he goes back to Charlotte, I think Charlotte's room,
Yes.
and he's like based looks like that.
It did look a bit like that. It looked really uncomfortable.
Like, it looks at the end, Jericho should have said, "Did it count?"
I'm not going to. Yeah, fair enough. Chris, what did you think of this match?
This was great. This is basically like their last match with more time and with the babyface getting his heat back, which was great. Once again, but we're still in a feud with no real definitive winner because it was a stoppage. Again, I don't know how you get a stoppage in a unsanctioned match, but we did. That's really my one criticism of this match, because like otherwise it was fucking brutal. Like, just Shawn Michaels was whipping Jericho with his belt at the end of his match for what felt like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Jericho took a sustained amount of punishment. And one thing, sorry, Chris, just one thing I wanted to sort of piggyback on what Garth said. Michaels has quite a lot of pomp and circumstance in his entrance. He does a lot of running, then does the muscle pose and all that bullshit. And one thing I hated from last year, and it was Bray Wyatt taking on The Miz at TLC.
Oh yeah, when Miz came out and it's like, "Oh, you threatened to kill my baby" or whatever. I didn't watch the show, but then he came out and was like, "Hey everyone, look, I'm the Miz."
Just did his entire Bray had been stalking Miz's family, and Miz was like, "This is for my family," getting all fired up, and then came out and did his entire shtick, did the whole spin and the point, and it was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Because like Miz is normally like, he's not good in ring, but he's an amazing character worker.
Yeah, exactly.
Like honestly, in the last half of the like after CM Punk left and Daniel Bryan retired, he's probably the best character worker in the Fed. And like this, I think the only reason this stood out so much was because the Miz should know better, because he does know better.
Well, let's be perfectly honest. Do you honestly think the Miz had any say in that?
Probably not.
Exactly. So,
do you really think Vince went like, "You need to do your own shit"? No, I don't think.
Yes, this is the man that doesn't like sneezing. This is the man who has gone round to everyone now and has told them to take the high-flying moves out of their matches. That's why everyone is hating WWE backstage, because they can't.
I didn't know that. What? You have Rey Mysterio on your roster, and essentially Zelina Vega's running around with a fucking, with a faction of Lucha Fighters, and you have that's ridiculous.
It's been reported that Vince has apparently told producers to take any dives or high flying moves out of their matches.
Right. Okay. So he's Bill Watts. Vince McMahon is Bill Watts, is what you're telling me.
But you don't think that this man told The Miz to go out and do his entire
Right, I see your
shtick.
point. I sometimes think that Vince McMahon, who's been doing this for 60 fucking years, might have a clue what he's doing, but I keep being proven wrong, okay?
Going back to this match, I thought the match was great. I thought there was a real heat and intensity. Michaels actually coming straight down to the ring and starting on Jericho without doing the entire HBK entrance. There was Jericho repeatedly trying to go to the eye, but ultimately Shawn was just effectively too angry and sort of got up through rage, gave in to the dark side, if you want to go Star Wars reference. He went full Anakin, giving into
something
dark side. And what I really did enjoy was at the end we had the exact mirror of the Great American Bash finish, where Jericho was actually in the exact same position as Shawn was, and Shawn is literally beating him mercilessly. Then we get the ridiculous stoppage in an unsanctioned match, which I agree with you, Chris, shouldn't fucking happen. But we do have it, and it sort of plays into it as well, because then we get Shawn Michaels basically pushing the referee off, still beating the shit out of him, and then the referee stop him, and Shawn just super kicks one in the face.
I just kicked Stan.
And I think that was great, because it showed that he wasn't just going to be this babyface that played by the rules. Ultimately, Jericho crossed the line. Jericho crossed the line by assaulting Shawn's wife, whether he did it inadvertently or not. And Shawn proved that rather than there being a black and a white, there was a grey area where, unfortunately, all things are on the table now, because I am going to kick the shit out of this man for attacking my family. I don't care if the referees are telling me to stop. I'm going to beat the shit out of him. And I think that added something to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's like what the Gargano Ciampa feud tried and failed to do. Where like you have this both men like naturally turning face and heel throughout the feud. Where like there wasn't a point in this feud where either man had the moral high ground for long. Like as soon as one would get one, it'd be dragged back down to bare level.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on, I just want to go to the main event of this show.
This is my rant. This is my fucking rant. I hate this. I hate this so much.
Would you like to go through it, Chris?
Right. So earlier in the night, right. So Randy Orton had sort of been grooming Legacy. That's a wrong word to use. He had been manipulating. There's no way to say this good. Legacy and Jimmy Snooker's son. He never went anywhere, and because he dropped Undertaker on his head. It's a whole thing. And then they took out CM Punk for no real reason, and then that would be brought back like 3 years later, going into Mania, which was a good callback. But at the same time, it doesn't forgive the fact that CM Punk World Champion was removed from this match, and they were like, "Yeah, okay." Instead of having Punk in, we're just going to add another guy. Now, you could have done this without removing CM Punk. You didn't have to have Punk lose the title and not even be in the match. Like, you could have... Hang on, who's in this match? Mysterio, JBL, Batista, and Kane. You're telling me you could have removed fucking Kane? You're telling me Kane or JB... Well, JBL's a heel, I guess, but Kane or Batista was so essential, more essential than the fucking champion? Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean,
yes.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, Chris, I hear your anger, but also all I hear is that you are a massive CM Punk mark.
I would be so angry regardless. Okay, imagine if earlier Triple H had been taken out of the match for no reason.
No one would give a shit. It's Triple H.
Okay, no one would give a shit.
He would have still won.
He would have done.
If this was any other champion, it would be just as stupid.
I mean,
it was pretty fucking dumb.
It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I'll give you that.
Kane was more essential than the champion.
I mean, to be fair, Chris, the ridiculousness of it was only compounded by the fact that he inserts Chris Jericho, who's just taken the absolute ass kicking of a lifetime, into this match. What GM does that?
Well, Mike Adamle was incompetent even in storyline. So.
That is true. The one good thing I will say is that once Jericho was inserted into the World Heavyweight Championship title scramble match, it wasn't like he was completely no-selling his injuries. He did at least
He fluked his way to this championship.
And that's perfect. He basically lay on the outside and then pinned Kane when he had the opportunity, but literally lay on him because he was that sort of just immobile. He was that injured that he just sort of lay there. And then you could even see when he held his arm up with the belt, he was fucked. He was gone. There was nothing there. One thing I will say, though, that makes me very happy is that technically on this show, Brian Kendrick was the WWE champion.
Was WWE champion. Spanky was WWE champion.
He was indeed. Bless him. He pinned Jeff Hardy, but that was then almost instantly pinned by, you guessed it, Burial Machine himself, Triple H. But
it speaks volumes to how weak SmackDown's championship scene was at the time.
When you look at that match, yeah, Triple H, Brian Kendrick, Jeff Hardy, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin.
Like at the time, Shelton and MVP were at least being positioned where they could be contenders. I mean, Shelton was the US champion for God's sake, but Kendrick, I love Kendrick. He's not a world champion.
Being accompanied by Ezekiel Jackson, the last ever ECW champion.
Big Rick.
The history books will always remember that. Will always remember that.
I now have Ezekiel Jackson's theme stuck in my head.
So we moved on from this, and Jericho is now your world heavyweight champion. So even though he lost this match, he was beaten to within an inch of his life. And Michaels is interviewed backstage, and Michaels basically says, "I don't regret any of it. I'd do it again," which is great. Plays into the fact that he super kicked a referee earlier. We then get our one last match. We get our blow-off match, because now that Chris Jericho has got the championship that he fluked his way to, Shawn Michaels demands an opportunity at the championship, and he demands it be a ladder match. Now, this is good for two reasons. One, it's a ladder match including Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. How's that not going to be a good match? But it also adds another layer to this feud. Shawn Michaels demands a ladder match because it's the match that he believes he pioneered. He had two absolutely fantastic ones against Razor Ramon at Mania 10 and SummerSlam 95, I believe.
Yeah, it was 95 because 94 Taker.
Yeah, of course. Two Takers. But Jericho uses that as Shawn once again stroking his own ego. And this infuriates Jericho more and makes him more heel. And Jericho says, yeah, okay, so Shawn thinks that he's pioneered the ladder match. Well, I've won more ladder matches than Michaels. I'm better than Michaels in ladder matches. So bring it on, Shawn Michaels. And this all comes to a head with that infamous promo before WWE overdid it, because that's what they do with every fucking thing. But Jericho sat atop that ladder delivering that promo on Raw. Oh,
do you
amazing.
remember Money in the Bank? I think it was 2016, where everyone was on top of the ladder.
Yeah.
You could just imagine Vince backstage. Hey, you know when Jericho sat atop that ladder? Wasn't that great? Have everybody do it. That's some good shit. You can imagine him saying that in a creative meeting, can't you? Because we can't just have one nice thing.
I want to wax lyrical about the promos again.
Right. Okay, Chris, sit back. Drunk Garth is going to go on a rant.
Obviously, after the Michaels Jericho match at Unforgiven, you had I think it was the September Raw, mid-September, where, it's after Jericho's won the title, he comes out and he's sort of smiling. He's sort of quite cocky now. But it's where he says, Unforgiven, I faced the self-righteous hypocrite Shawn Michaels, and all the crowd are going absolutely fucking mental. It's old school heat. They want to climb the barricades and kill him. But then he does the whole thing where he turns it back again, where he says, well, what kind of man would do this? And he pulls his shirt up and he's got all the whip marks off the belt. He's whipped me like a dog. He's mauled me. And he's like, you're all just a bunch of hypocrites. And I just again, it's playing into this whole, look, I'm right. He's the bad guy. And it's like, he even says on it, it's like, good things happen to good people, and I'm a good person. And he's like, take the championship, for instance. He's like, Batista was so close, but I outsmarted him, and I won. And it's just the way he says it, and it's like, oh, fuck, man, you're such a shit.
What? I'm sorry, but when Garth said, I'm the bad guy, all I thought was, duh.
Did you go full Billie Eilish?
Ding, 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 ding,
But
ding, ding,
it's
ding.
it's when they sort of set up the ladder match, and they have a match. It's like a Jericho and Cade versus, which turns out to be DX. That was like the Raw before No Mercy. But it's the promo before where Jericho's that out, and he's saying, somebody, when I came into the arena today, somebody dared wish me luck against Michaels on Sunday. He's like, this is what I think of your look. And he sort of walks under the ladder. And it's just tiny little things like that. You're like, nobody would do that now because it would be so scripted and it would be so stagnated. And it's just, he says, I'm going to maim him. He gets the ladder and he starts showing you what he's going to do. And he's like, I'm going to get this ladder and I'm going to smash Shawn Michaels' head in and I'm going to cave its ribs in. And all of this just, again, I watched all of this sort of one after the other and then watched the matches, and it made the matches mean so much more going into it. But the match that I had on Raw, where it was, I mean, was that like the return of DX properly?
No, that was a year later because that played into after the Taker Michaels thing.
Because Triple H
was on SmackDown at this point.
Oh yeah, because he's champion.
Obviously.
With the spin about the best design.
But it was all about like Michaels' mystery partner, blah blah. And then when he comes out, the crowd, the pop is fucking unbelievable. And then have a pretty average match, but Michaels does that splash from the top of the ladder on the Lancer Cade to sort of set up the ladder match at No Mercy. But I just want to mention because it set the match up so perfectly for it and set up the characters so perfectly, and it showed what Michaels was willing to do again to win the match. So this feud was just so well done.
Yeah, definitely. Chris, do you want to add anything? Oh, sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Sorry, Garth. Go on, carry on.
Leading up to the blow up was just so good.
In terms of the lead up, no, nothing to add. But can we quickly talk about the No Mercy 2008 card?
Go on then.
This is actually a good show, even outside of 2008 standards. Like Mark Henry versus Matt Hardy was a surprisingly alright small versus big man thing. You have Beth Phoenix taking on Candice Michelle, which is okay. But then Rey Mysterio versus Kane, because they were feuding at this point. Which I love because Rey Mysterio was like the best babyface. Batista versus JBL, because JBL apparently can sing in feuds with main eventers. And Batista beat JBL in 5 minutes. Big Show versus Undertaker, which actually was really good.
It got 3.5 stars from the Wrestling Observer, so.
Yeah, and I know, Big Show can be really good when he tries. And then Triple H versus Jeff Hardy, which was like my feud at the time because Jeff Hardy was like my favorite. It was like face paint, rainbow. It was great, and I loved it. And I hated Triple H because Triple H was such a smug cunt. But anyway, this match, which I think might be in my top 10 favorite WWE matches, not like matches in general because I'm a smack, but like WWE matches of all time.
This was the best way to blow off this feud. This was absolutely fantastic. I'll let you guys talk about it first before I butt in. Chris, you can go first on this one because I went to Garth last time.
What's weird about this one is I remember this them appearing on Tough Enough, of all things.
Jericho and Michaels?
No, just Jericho, because Jericho was the host, and he'd sometimes go to like the Tough Enough barracks and break down matches, and one of them was this one. And it was so weird because Jericho was very clearly just having none of the men in Tough Enough. He was constantly shitting on him. And then one of them went, because Jericho was like whispering, like as people do. And one of the guys went, "What are you saying?" And then he was like, "Oh, I was probably just muttering under my breath so I can hope that idiots would say what am I saying." It's like brutal. But anyway, yeah. The one weird thing about this match, there was an exchange at the beginning that was the same as one of the exchanges in their first match at Judgment Day.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to mention this. This is far more like their first match than anything in between, because it was more of a wrestling match, and I say that loosely because it was a ladder match, but it was far less hate-filled than the previous match at Unforgiven, and it was far less brawly like the other two in Great American Bash. In Great American Bash.
I think with this one, it's because at this point, Michaels, in terms of like getting revenge for what Jericho does, if he always does that, he just doesn't want Jericho to have this nice thing.
He had just slapped his wife, to be fair.
Yeah, so like he was like, okay, I've made you pay, but I'm also going to make you pay more. Like this was less about making Jericho hurt for Michaels. This is more about winning something to spite him.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Like he's like, you see my pal Triple H? Yeah, I'm going to do that.
I'm going to take my golden shovel and I'm going to bury you. But yeah, this match was great, and I agree with you, Chris. It's definitely one of my top 10 WWE matches. I thought it was great, and yet again, proved that both of these are absolutely fantastic in ladder matches. They're so fucking good. They're so
Just
innovative.
Such good workers. Like, I think watching this stuff again, and obviously like the more recent stuff with Jericho, you actually forget how good Chris Jericho is, like all round. Like HBK is like obviously one of the greats. But
he said it. He praised Shawn. This never happened.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. He's not as good as Bret Hart, obviously, but
it's like Hades' comic.
But Jericho hangs with him word for word and match for match and move for move. He's as good as HBK.
100%.
What I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. There was no person carrying anyone in this match, and it's actually Jericho who's more innovative using the ladder. Slamming his face in between the two ladders. That looked awful. That looked really painful.
Jericho legitimately lost teeth from that.
It's where you see his mouth bleeding because you see him outside and he goes, "Fuck!"
It's literally because he lost teeth.
Yeah, and also probably just going to find off Vince.
True.
Like,
more blood shit.
There was unprotected headshots in the last match. I think we just got fined. How much? I think they lost more money on this feud than we did.
There was that horrible, scary landing where Jericho, he pins Shawn underneath the ladder, which I think at this point might have been the first time they did that. Actually pinned Shawn underneath the ladder and then started climbing it, which was it was a brilliant spot. But Shawn manages to use his sort of upper body strength to sort of force it up enough to get out and then push it, but he pushes it the long way out of the ring, so Jericho has no option but to fall out of the ring, and he lands...
That's got to be, 20 feet or something? 15, 20 feet.
He lands on his feet, but how he doesn't fuck his knee, because the landing, even if it had landed properly, it would have hurt.
It's one of the sickest ladder bumps ever. Like, the only bump sicker I can think of was, weirdly enough, Ravy Davey in ICW off of a ladder.
Honestly, it could have legitimately broken his leg.
Could have died.
It was awful, because the way he lands, he doesn't land properly. He lands with one foot he almost lands on his ankle. And you just see him roll, and you're like, oh my God, that's it, he's dead. That's it, no more Jericho. This
match, more than any of them, shows how good they are at sort of innovating within the ring and changing stuff on the fly, because I spoke before about the triangle dropkick that Jericho does. He goes for that, but you can see that Michaels is a bit too close, so he has to change it into like a sort of shoulder charge.
Yeah.
And goes over the rope himself, and it's just like, fuck, it's like on your feet thinking so quick. And the bit where they obviously botched the move where they throw Jericho into the corner, into the ladder, and his leg gets caught. So then they just move it on to right. Well, Michaels works the leg for a bit, and it just, you can see it all. Just, it's so organic the way they work it, and the way one of the best bits, and even the commentators sort of mention it, is where HBK is sort of getting up and there's a ladder in the corner, and Jericho just kicks it, and it hits Michaels on the rebound. Just tiny little things like that just make it, just shows you how good they are and how sort of proficient they are in the ring.
It's a great spot. It's a great spot.
I'm increasingly finding with a lot of ladder matches we're covering where ladder matches for turning to Spot Fest just don't do it for me.
Yeah.
Like, as athletically impressive as, say, Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers is, it feels like a normal match. Like for example, in wrestling, as weird as this sounds, you should always be working towards your win condition, which is why, like, little things like in the Benoit Angle Ultimate Submission match when the two guys tap out straight away because we don't want to do lasting damage of this 30-minute match. People mark out over that shit, but like ladder matches, people seem to forget that and we just look out for the spots. Whereas like these two, they were trying to actually take each other out and then climb the ladder, as opposed to do crazy shit with the ladder and then eventually someone will get it.
It's like not. I've even wrote it down. It's like none of the spots were sort of telegraphed or built. They just happened, rather than now when you, especially in like the NXT ones, where you can see they'll set up 3 ladders in this sort of pyramid and then they'll just leave it for later, sort of thing. There's none of that.
That ending could have looked so convoluted because we essentially just had the same kind of ending at Money in the Bank.
Yeah, and you've got stuff like slow climbing. They weren't really doing that, which fucking winds us up so much nowadays.
Like when we did slow down, it made sense.
Yeah, because they're just taking an absolute shit kicking.
But like we didn't forget how to climb a ladder.
Yeah.
And finally, Lance Cade's interference actually made sense.
First time in this feud. It's what this feud was missing, was Lance Cade making sense.
Now, I will say, I completely agree with you, Garth. We weren't just waiting for one of them to climb to the top of a ladder and do something silly. They were innovative with it. That spot that you were talking about where Jericho kicks the ladder and it hits Michaels in the face, that was fucking great.
A bit where there's one where right at the beginning where Jericho throws Michaels into the ladder on the ramp and he runs up it and then just does a sort of twist and like body drop sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I will say, and this winds me up, and this is the one counterpoint to what you've just said. One spot I've never ever understood is putting a ladder on top of someone and then jumping onto them.
Yeah.
So Michaels,
like the elbow.
Exactly. Michaels puts the ladder onto Jericho and then goes for the elbow drop. And you actually see his elbow hit the ladder, and you're like, that must have absolutely, talking about like getting maximum reward for minimum like effort. Fucking hell, that can't have hurt Jericho anywhere near as much as it hurt Shawn.
The best part about that is the lead up to it, where Jericho sort of stood on the ladder and he pushes him down. Jericho has to quickly pull the ladder.
Yeah, I've seen
because he's dropped it.
Shit.
So good.
This is an absolutely great match. I will just say, Chris, you said about the ending where he falls off the ladder with the belt. That must have fucking hurt as well. It's a high fall. That
just to the side, like, just falls to the side.
Yeah,
it's like Jericho's fall there was like literally his last fuck you. It's like, okay, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill myself just so you can't have this championship.
This was a great match.
How like at the end as well, Jericho purposely like sort of smears the blood, so it looks worse on his face.
I think so. Like the way the tug of war was, there was no way for Michaels could have gotten it because if he tried to pull the championship through, it would get stuck.
Yeah. It was just basically, I'm not letting you have it. You're not having it.
No, it's mine. No, it's mine.
It was so simple as well. There wasn't anything ridiculous. There wasn't someone doing a Salida del Sol off the top of the rope, top of the ladder. Cool as that is. But it was just, a headbutt, and then holding onto the belt. Simple, effective. It was a great match. Easily a 9 out of 10. Easily.
If that was now, they like even probably Jericho now in the current would have done a code breaker off the top rope, off the top of the ladder, and then try to get back up again.
Bold of you to assume that Jericho would take a bump nowadays.
Yeah, true. This is like I was watching this and I was like, is this one of those hidden ladder matches that people never remember?
No, but everyone talks about this.
I've never noticed it come up. I loved it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, really, really, really good match and a great way to blow off the feud. Unfortunately,
this was voted match of the year, wasn't it?
I know it was feud of the year. I think this might have been match of the year. WWE's match of the year, certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is that this didn't really permeate into WWE on a wider scale because Jericho dropped the title very, very soon after that, but I suppose it served its purpose.
To Batista, wasn't it?
It was to Batista, but then Jericho won it back, and then I think Jericho
Cyber Sunday,
and then Jericho lost it to Cena, I think.
Oh yeah, no, because they were like, oh no, we need to save the Batista Cena rematch for an actual Mania. So,
but yeah, overall, that is our rundown of Jericho versus Michaels 2008, one of the great feuds, and certainly up there in top 5 WWE feuds for me.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would put it up there, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the character work they did, the simplicity and some of the spots they did, and to top it all off with a match of that caliber really, really does seal it off as one of the great feuds. So definitely seek out all of the certain bits of this feud.
Well, super weird. Big DX and Jericho feuded the next year, and this didn't really get brought up.
That's because WWE don't like their own history and never have done.
Also, I honestly just said that so I could say the tag name Jericho.
Jericho is a fantastic name, isn't it? I love it.
And their theme is an absolute banger.
I don't think I've heard their theme.
It's like a mashup of Big Show's theme and Jericho's theme, but it's like heavier versions.
I'll have to listen to it.
To be fair, the Miz's mashup with Big Show is better.
Well, I know what I'm doing when I come off the podcast. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. Just a couple of things that are coming up this week. As we are publishing, we have got on the Young Lioncast on Wednesday, part 2 of mine and Chris's Okada versus Tanahashi feud, where we look at Okada's first reign. On Friday, then, we will be back for our week in wrestling alongside our double or nothing predictions. So make sure you check in on that on Friday at 6 p.m. British time. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get them, we are there. Go to the website, www.podmania.co.uk, where you can check out all of our archived episodes, and you can check out our match rating archives, all those sorts of good things. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at PodMania. Join the Facebook group, PodMania Podcasts. You can talk to me on Twitter at RealRobGoodwin. Chris, where can they find you?
And Bushi.
And Garth, where can they find you?
Garthmania, brother.
We'll be back on Friday with our week in wrestling. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
You've been listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at PodMania, Facebook at PodMania Podcasts, and YouTube and Instagram at Real PodMania. And check out the website podmania.co.uk. Until next time, wrestling fans.